Hello, vinyl community. It's Mitch back at it again with round two of the Prince collection. This time it's going to be the CD version. So I know this is a vinyl community. I'm going to be showing an awful lot of CDs. I showed my vinyl Prince and related artists collection video I released a couple days ago, and I got some good feedback, so I was just going to go ahead and do the CD version. As far as my vinyl video goes, I felt like I had a big pile and kind of seemed rushed, I guess, and I didn't really like that. I think I would like to maybe start here with talking a little bit more about Prince and his impact on me, at least artistically, before I get into the pile of CDs that I have to show. As far as my fandom of Prince goes, I was raised by a huge Prince fan. In fact, a lot of the stuff that you'll see today, especially in the CD area, came from my dad's collection and was passed on to me. And so I've been listening to Prince really my entire life. And I think when you start to discuss Prince in regards to not only his musicianship, which on that level it's pretty hard to fault him. He's a fantastic guitar player. I feel like he's a really underrated bassist. His drum work is always right where it needs to be. Maybe not as complicated as some better drummers out there, but he's definitely good enough behind the trap set to put down what he wanted to put down in the studio, let alone his composing and writing abilities, producing abilities. But outside of all those artistic merits, just the way that he's impacted me personally, I feel like it's been huge. His ability to kind of bridge the gap between being a spiritual person and a sexual person was really influential for me as an early teenager, growing up in a culture that didn't really talk about sex too much. It was interesting to hear somebody who would write songs that are very explicitly about spirituality or have kind of maybe Christian overtones to them in some ways, talk about sex in a way that he was totally okay with it. And that caused me to do a lot of thinking. I also, when it comes to Prince's image, the way he carried himself, how dedicated he was to his artistic vision, I think it really kind of lended itself to me thinking about what it would mean to just be okay being who you are. And so those things have been really important to me throughout my formative years and coming into my own, especially being somebody who was maybe well, not maybe. I was into a lot of harder music growing up. My dad was a huge metal fan. I got into punk and hardcore music as early as 13 or 14. And so there was a time in my life where it wasn't exactly cool to listen to music like Prince. And I know a lot of males in particular, especially in the Prince community, have had experiences where when you kind of talk about being a Prince fan or maybe admitting that you're a Prince fan, people kind of give you a hard time, like it's not okay for a guy to be a fan of Prince's music or whatever. And I'm really fortunate to have, like I said, grown up in a house where that wasn't necessarily the case. I was always encouraged to just like what I like and listen to what I wanted to listen to. So those are kind of some of the small ways that Prince's music has impacted me over time. I'll probably just dive into the pile that I have next to me here. Forgive me if it's a little bit awkward in this video. There's a huge pile of CDs next to me, and I wanted to make sure that I had them all in the right order as best I could. And I've got the discography pulled up as well, so if you catch me scrolling on the computer, forgive me. There's just, when you have a guy with 39 studio albums, it kind of gets jumbled in your head over time, but I'll just go ahead and dive in here. Just like the vinyl situation, I'm missing his debut, For You, from 1978. I have it digitally, and when I listen to it, I honestly just catch Soft and Wet, really. Maybe a couple of other songs off there, but I'm for some reason just still missing a physical copy on it. And when I found it in the record stores lately, it's been priced in the low to mid 50s, and I just don't want to pay that for an album, especially in the condition I've been finding it in. So we'll start with his second album, which is self-titled here. So just Prince, sophomore effort. Honestly, almost every song on here is perfect. If I'm anywhere and I Want to Be Your Lover comes on, I'm probably going to embarrass myself by dancing. Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad, I love the falsetto work. The Sexy Dancer is fantastic. I can imagine people who were around in the roller skating rinks when this album came out were probably pretty digging that. I Feel For You, which later Shaka Khan redid. I prefer Prince's version. It's just a fantastic song. For somebody who was, I think, 20 by the time this came out and produced, arranged, composed, and performed all of it himself, I think it's a fantastic effort. And like I said in the vinyl video, Bambi, which is track 6, is probably the earliest Prince track that alludes to how great of a guitarist he already was and would continue to develop into. Next up, we got the third album from 1980, Dirty Mind. There are no bad songs on this one again. Dirty Mind, the title track is fantastic. When You Were Mine, it's great. I might skip over Sister just because of the weird incestuous kind of hint lyrics. But man, everything on here is great. If I had to pick one to take away from it, it would probably be a toss-up between When You Were Mine or Head. Then we have 1981's Controversy. This is probably my favorite Prince album. We've got the self-titled track there, Controversy, it never gets old. Do Me Baby, Private Joy, Let's Work is a fantastic dance song. Anti-Christian is about the Antichrist, and then you've also got Ronnie Talk to Russia, which is just a plea to Ronald Reagan to end the Cold War. I think it's really interesting when you digest Prince's catalog to kind of come see the theme of him being quite scared of a nuclear war. I think between Dirty Mind, Controversy, and then 1982's 1999 is where Prince really kind of solidified his identity and became what he would be known to the public as throughout the rest of his career, even if maybe later on in his catalog he wasn't exactly the same Prince anymore. This album, if you have not checked this out, if you're not a big Prince fan, I always recommend this as a starting place, just because I feel like it's impossible not to like this album. 1999 and Little Red Corvette are maybe a little bit overplayed, but I still love them. The third track, Delirious, is amazing. The synth work, the Lynn drums on it are incredible. Then you've got Let's Pretend We're Married, which is one of my favorite all-time Prince songs. And then from the last 3 tracks, Lady Cab Driver, All the Critics Love You in New York, and International Lover is probably one of the best 15 to 20 minutes on the end of an album, in any album in my collection, honestly. After 1999, of course, we get the Purple Rain. Purple Rain went platinum twice. I think they need to recertify it. I think after he died, it's probably gone platinum again. Again, not a bad song on here. Of course, you've got the title track, which is probably the most well-known Prince song. I Would Die For You is amazing. Great dance track, great lyrical content. It makes you think. And then, of course, you've got Take Me With You, The Beautiful Ones, and then Darling Nikki, which, of course, is one of the songs responsible for getting Tipper Gore started with the explicit lyrics sticker movement. Then, after Purple Rain, comes Around the World in a Day, which is kind of a toss-up between this and Controversy for my favorite Prince album. This is in the Digipack, and then I also have just a regular jewel case. As far as around the world goes, and around the world in the day goes, this is probably Prince's most psychedelic album. You can kind of see a little bit on the cover art there. There's hints of the Beatles on here. In fact, a lot of the hardcore Prince community tends to call this Prince's Sgt. Pepper's. I think that's maybe a little bit overreaching. It's not quite as conceptually sound as Sgt. Pepper is as far as continuity. Around the World in the Day does have kind of, the title track has some world music, sitar, bells, kind of things happening, which maybe remind people of the Beatles. Paisley Park is my favorite song on here. Just really kind of a peaceful feeling ballad. It's really strong songwriting. And of course, you've got Raspberry Beret and Everybody Loves Pop Life on here. Tambourine is one of the first songs that Lisa kind of had a lot to do with on the guitar, and it shows. I think it's a really fantastic song. Also, an interesting metaphor for some sexual stuff happening there. And then the Ladder, the second to the last track, is lyrically fantastic. I love the melody. This is just a really strong album. It's fun to listen to. I would recommend this for somebody who's maybe feels like they don't like Prince. I think this is outside of the norm from the Warner Brothers era enough to maybe warrant a second chance. After Around the World in a Day, we have Parade. This is a first press CD, if you can call it that. Doesn't have the title on the cover art there, and that was Dad's, and then this one's mine. Parade is the if you can see there, the soundtrack from the movie Under the Cherry Moon, which is kind of a black and white almost film noir about Prince being a gigolo. The movie's not so great. It has its moments, but this soundtrack, man, I Wonder You is amazing. Of course, a lot of people know Girls and Boys. You've got Mountains, which is Prince channeling James Brown, in my opinion. Then, of course, everybody knows Kiss. But another Lover, Hole in Your Head is probably my favorite up-tempo track from this album. It's between that and Mountains. And then, of course, the album ends with Sometimes It Snows in April, which is a high point in Prince's career. Next up, you have Sign of the Times from 1987. I've got three different jewel cases to show here. Dad's copy was 2 discs in 2 jewel cases. And then the copy that I bought much later down the road is double CD and 1 jewel case. This is commonly critically reviewed as one of the best double albums of the 80s. I tend to agree. The title track is really poignant. I love the lyrics. Housequake, one of the best Minneapolis sound kind of dance songs. Housequake honestly probably could have been a Morris Day in the Time song if he wanted it to. I'm glad Prince kept it for himself, but it has that kind of feel to it. Starfish and Coffee is one of the most catchy pop songs in Prince's catalog. I really love it. In fact, I have a Starfish and Coffee shirt that I probably could have popped on to be cheeky for this video. Forever in My Life, the last song on the first disc, is just a wonderful, slow dancey type of love song. It's followed up by the fantastic You Got the Look with Sheena Easton doing the background vocals. And then, man, If I Was Your Girlfriend is just this awesome way of looking at intimacy within romantic relationships. And I think only Prince, honestly, could have written that song. Then you have I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, The Cross, It's Gonna Be a Beautiful Night, and then Adore is the last track. Those four songs, I could probably leave Adore off just because it's kind of overplayed, but man, the guitar work on The Cross alone is worth the price of admission for this album. After Sign of the Times, we get Love Sexy. Love Sexy is really interesting just because it has no tracks, so you're forced to kind of listen to the album as a whole. Most known song off of here is going to be Alphabet Street. He also released Glam Slam as a single. I tend to gravitate towards Alphabet Street and the second to last track, I Wish You Heaven, off this one. It's a really interesting kind of concept to force people to listen to your whole album without tracks. I think it really is meant to be listened to as a unit. It's not necessarily my favorite Prince album, but I'm still glad he made it. After Love Sexy, we're headed towards the end of the 80s here, so we've got 1989's Batman, of course the soundtrack to the Tim Burton movie. Fantastic album. I think it's really underrated. Arms of Orion, Party Man, Bat Dance probably being my favorite songs off of this album. So I have that one, and then I also have a collectible can version, if you will, kind of. See if I can show you guys. It's got a really cool embossed booklet, and then the disc is kind of all matte black. After Batman comes Graffiti Bridge, which I don't necessarily count as a Prince album. It's the soundtrack to the movie Graffiti Bridge, which is the third and last feature film, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 songs on here that have nothing to do with Prince performing them. He of course wrote them. There's a really cool Mavis Staples lead vocal on here called Melody Cool. If I had to pick, I'm going to go with either Week in Funk, which features George Clinton, or Joy and Repetition. You also have the fantastic Thieves in the Temple, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie. But again, this movie sucks. You have to be a really hardcore Prince fan to even want to watch his movies in the first place. And I think you have to be kind of a blind critic of his work to say that they're any good. But this album does have some cool stuff on here from the time, and like I said, Mavis Staples, but it's just not necessarily a Prince album. After Graffiti Bridge comes Diamonds and Pearls. It's got the holographic cover there. I think, honestly, this is kind of what restored Prince back to his mid-'80s popularity for a little bit. I really think this album is underrated and underappreciated, though. Of course, Diamonds and Pearls being the title track is one of the most famous songs of this album, but man, Daddy Pop's fantastic. You've got Cream, Strollin', which is kind of this almost Smokey Robinson-esque song about hanging out with your girlfriend. Get Off's great. Walk Don't Walk is fantastic. Money Don't Matter Tonight is another really good single off of this album. If you haven't checked this one out and you're a Prince fan, I highly recommend it. After Diamonds and Pearls, we got the Love Symbol album. I just have this one that was passed down to Dad. It's in passed down to me from Dad. Excuse me. It's in kind of a. See if you can see the spine there. It's Prince and the New Power Generation. Comes with a lot thicker book. There's the disc there. So On the Love Symbol album, we've got My Name is Prince, Sexy Motherfucker. The Morning Papers is fantastic. My favorite song off of here is going to be Seven, which is an apocalyptic soul tune. Really, really good. I checked this Slipbox version out on Discogs, and it seems to be in quite high demand. As you can tell, Dad kept it in pretty good shape, but it's not going anywhere. So at this point in Prince's career, he's getting pretty pissed off at Warner Brothers, and you can kind of tell. So comes next, and it's kind of got his birth and quote-unquote death dates on it. This honestly isn't my favorite Prince album. I'm glad to have a copy of it. Honestly, probably the only song I would listen to off of this is the title track. After Come, we finally got the Black album released. Kind of see the hype stickers stuck in there. There's the disc. Black album is a Prince album, but it's technically an alter ego album. It was most of the lyrics are sung in his Camille voice, which is kind of a darker character, darker alter ego. But there are some fantastic songs on here. Bob George, Rock Hard in a Funky Place. Cindy C is great. This is a really kind of dark funk album. He initially didn't want it released, and then I think he allowed WB to release it so that he could get out of his contract faster, if you want my honest opinion. But it's really worth having. I really hope to find one of the original vinyl releases of this sometime, but they're kind of ungodly expensive, so that might be one of the buy one grail this month instead of going record shopping a few times type of situations. After the Black album, we have the Gold Experience, which I believe I'm missing. So then we skip one and go to Chaos and Disorder. This is his last album on Warner Brothers, and the first one that doesn't have his name as Prince on here. It just has the love symbol. After that, we get his first album on the MPG label, Emancipation. This is a 3 CD set. You've got a lot of really interesting songs on here. Emancipation, The Love We Make, La 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 Means I Love You is great. Somebody Somebody is pretty good. This album's a lot to digest. It's pretty different, but I think for maybe you guys who are deeper Prince fans that haven't heard this one, you should give it a chance. It's a lot to digest being 3 CDs, but it's pretty solid. After Emancipation, we got another 3 CD set, Crystal Ball, which also came with the bonus disc, The Truth. Crystal Ball honestly has some of my favorite Prince songs on there. You've got She Gave Her Angels, Poom Poom, Acknowledge Me, and then that last album there, the bonus disc, The Truth, is kind of Prince's one and only acoustic album, so it's just him and an acoustic guitar. Kind of has that, MTV Unplugged feel from the era. Pretty great. This video is getting pretty long, so I'll probably stop here and end up doing part 3, which will be the part 2 of the CD collection. So anyway, if you guys are interested in seeing the rest of the collection, check out the next video.